Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Adam Levine, and I'm the Executive Director here at the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, or NYMTC. As the Downstate Region's Metropolitan Planning Organization, NYMTC provides a collaborative planning forum to address transportation-related issues and develop regional plans through our members' shared vision for the transportation network that connects New York City, Long Island, and the Lower Hudson Valley. Thank you all for participating in today's Brown Bag webinar. Please note that this webinar is eligible for one certification maintenance credit from the American Planning Association. You'll find more information about this in the chat. Today we will hear from Keith Kerman, who is Deputy Commissioner at the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, or DCAS, and New York City's first Chief Fleet Officer. In the role of Chief Fleet Officer, Keith serves 50 agencies, including the New York Police Department, the Fire Department of the City of New York, and the New York City Department of Sanitation. Keith is a lifelong civil servant in the 32nd year of his career, and he is the recipient of numerous public service awards, including the Sloan Public Service Award from the Fund for the City of New York in 2019. Today, Keith will be talking about the DCAS's Safe Fleet Transition Plan, also known as the SFTP, which was created to guide safe fleet design and advance best practices in safety for New York City's fleet. His presentation will describe the SFTP's accomplishments in improving fleet vehicle safety, including the installation of over 100,000 improvements to fleet vehicles and lessons learned for the future. There will be an opportunity for questions following the presentation, so please type your questions into the WebEx chat box and we'll address them during the question and answer portion towards the end of today's presentation. I also ask that you let us know via the chat who you are and where you're joining us from. This helps us learn more about our audience so we can plan for future Brown Bag webinar events. Before I turn the microphone over to Keith, I'll just add a brief note to say, please stay tuned for our upcoming webinars. On November 12th, we'll feature the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey's Newark Station Access Project. And on December 10th, we'll close out the year with the New York City Department of Transportation's Way in Motion program. More information about these webinars will be announced soon. Thank you again for joining us today, and I will now turn the microphone over to Keith. Keith?
Okay, thank you very much, Adam, and it's great to be with you today. My name is Keith Kerman. I'm the Chief Fleet Officer for the City of New York and a Deputy Commissioner at DCAS, the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, on behalf of Mayor Adams and our Commissioner, Luis Molina. Thanks for spending this time with me. We can go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about the city fleet and specifically about what we call the Safe Fleet Transition Plan, our initiative to make the city fleet as safe as possible, to look at the design of vehicles across every type of vehicle out there, and to influence not just public vehicles in our own fleet, but to influence the broader fleet industry, commercial vehicles, and the such. Next slide. So first, I'll just start with some numbers. According to the federal government, the CDC, there were 22,830 homicides in 2023, the last full reported year. And if you think about how much time, energy, political capital, money, focus, our politics and our culture place on issues of violent crime, right? There's a debate in this country about whether the military should be sent to cities. And we can all have opinions on that, but it's all in theory about addressing these issues. I grew up in Massachusetts and learned a lot about what I learned about New York from Law and Order, which I'm an obsessed follower. And of course, there's a homicide at the beginning of every show. Next slide. Yet, you have twice as much of a chance to lose your life in a gruesome, horrible event, crossing the street, driving a car, riding a bicycle. In 2023, also from the federal government, there were 40,901 traffic fatalities. And so, I ask, where is the comparable or level of focus, energy, attention on the much bigger risk? And they're just as horrible events, they're just as bloody, they're just as life and family and community destroying. One fact is, a huge percentage of homicides are actually committed by people who know each other at some level, whereas traffic fatalities are almost always random, right? You're not going to know the drunk driver who runs into your car and kills a member of your family. And there's twice as many of them. So, we really think that this is an area that needs an enormous amount of focus. That's what Vision Zero has been about, begun in 2014 under Mayor de Blasio, and a continued focus under Mayor Adams. And next slide. And a focus of us for the New York City fleet. So who are we? We're the city fleet. We're the largest municipal fleet in the United States. We're police, fire, sanitation, 50 different agencies. Add in 10,000 school buses, which are contracted, but part of our general oversight and support. And it's one of the larger fleets that operate in the United States, probably between 10 to 12th largest fleet that operates in the QS. We're here to talk about safety, not sustainability, but I can't help but to state that every vehicle in this picture is electric. Next. We're a big operation. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in it, but like anything that goes on in New York City, we're in one sense a town fleet, but it's a pretty big town. It's a pretty big fleet. So we're $1.4 billion a year operation. We have 1,800 full-time staff, 80,000 full and part-time fleet operators. And we're doing, if you add in the school buses, well over 250 million miles in the city, mostly in the city, some a little bit above every year. Next. We are everywhere. So we're going to talk a little bit more. We run something called the Fleet Office of Real-Time Tracking. It's our kind of command center here at the municipal building on the 21st floor. But I often joke with people that you can't walk 2 blocks and not see a New York City fleet vehicle in New York City. And now we can show that. So, point in time is on the left, and then one day is on the right. Literally a fleet vehicle, whether it's a sanitation vehicle, a fire truck, police cars, are on everyone's street every day in New York City. Next. So the day job for the city fleet, extraordinarily important. We call it a single fleet, but it's really hundreds of different businesses and operations, from plowing snow and picking up garbage to fire servicing to policing to parks department operations and forestry and in beach operations to DEP's efforts to take care of the water and sewer system to DOT rebuilding the roadways. That's the day job that we utilize all these complex vehicles for, 120 types of on-road vehicles, 70 off-road. But we want to do it, next slide, as sustainably as we can. And in many ways, if we can make enormous progress in sustainability and safety in a fleet this complicated, this taxed, anybody can, and everybody can. So when we talk about sustainability, it's both safety and emissions. And that is something we've codified in what's called Executive Order 53, which is online, you can get it, where DCAS produces every year, we partner with the United States Department of Transportation Volpe Center, clean fleet and safe fleet transition plans. So we look at the design of vehicles and how they can be designed to reduce emissions, be more efficient in how they operate, in their maintenance, in their fueling, and be safer. In many ways, what we are trying to do for vehicle stock is the complement of what the city DOT is doing such an important job in redesigning the roadways themselves, right? The complement to lowering the speed limit, to bike lanes, to calming mechanisms is, can we actually redesign the vehicles themselves? And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Next. My last side note, because I can't help myself, again, we're going to talk about safety, but I will say we're making enormous progress on the sustainability side. We announced just a couple weeks ago as part of Climate Week that we had reduced fossil fuel use in the city fleet by 67% through electrification, through hybrids, through efficiencies, and through replacing all fossil diesel fuel with what's called renewable diesel, a biofuel basically made of used cooking oil and waste animal fat. So not today's presentation, but I can't help to pitch it. Next. We're going to start with a video.
New York City has the largest municipal fleet in the United States, and over the past 10 years, Vision Zero has also made it one of the safest. From sanitation trucks and fire engines to street pavers and police cars, the City of New York owns and operates thousands of vehicles and is proud to lead by example when it comes to traffic safety. Before Vision Zero, virtually no trucks in the United States had side guards, leaving road users at risk of sliding under during side impact collisions. But after New York City passed laws requiring side guards, the rest of the country followed suit, and we began paving the way for safety trends across the U.S. New York City inspired a nationwide Safe Fleets Challenge after introducing tech that slows down speeding drivers, and our real-time telematics operation is the largest in the country, monitoring over 28,500 city vehicles 24/7 for everything from speeding to seatbelt use. In 2014, we introduced a system for examining crashes involving city vehicles and discovered that most injuries are caused by rear-end collisions. So, we introduced automatic braking, new training, and new safety requirements that decreased collisions and injuries. Over 86,000 safety systems have been installed on city-owned vehicles. Over 95,000 employees have completed our defensive driving training, and since 2018, preventable city fleet crashes are down 26%. But we're just getting started, because our work isn't done until we get to zero.
Next slide. Okay, so in some of those numbers, we like the video. Some of the numbers are actually a little dated, and I'll update them. So our Safe Fleet Transition Plan is basically, and it's a public document, you can take a look at it, an effort to look at how we might redesign vehicles from light, medium, and heavy, and in different specialized operations to be as safe as possible. And we have three categories I'll go over. Tier 1, what we mandate. Tier 2, what we consider a best practice. We don't mandate it for various reasons. It could be operational or supply chain, but we are starting to implement it. And then Tier 3, what is experimental, exploratory. And we announced in February that we had already achieved over 100,000 safety improvements. I'm going to go through what those are in a moment in the city fleet, probably closer to about 105, 106,000 today. Next slide. I'm going to focus mostly on the city fleet, but as I mentioned earlier through Executive Order 53, our efforts are not just about public city fleet vehicles. It's about the entire industry. And we have published similar Safe Fleet Transition Plan reports for the 10,000 school buses that New York City operates, as well as school buses throughout the state and the country. And next slide. Also for the commercial waste industry and for contractor vehicles in general. And one of the things I'll talk about is we're trying to take initiatives that we've implemented on the city fleet side and extend them to commercial fleets. The school buses are themselves, well, we all think of them as public yellow school buses. They are in fact contract operated. We got the biggest garbage truck program around in sanitation, but 2,200 trucks. But obviously, there's an enormous commercial waste program in New York City and beyond. And then we are trying to extend these to contractors of the city of New York, and I'll talk more about that, but use our contracting reach to try and extend some of our efforts. So we've published reports on school buses, contract vehicles, and the city fleet. I'm mostly going to talk about the city fleet, but I wanted to mention that our ambitions go beyond that. Next. Okay, again, why focus on this? We've had a whole series of events. You all read about them in the newspaper, these tragic events. They're all preventable. None of them have to happen. And this particular set, this slide, focus very much on trucks and visual awareness. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But, when a big truck drives in, the interstate highway, yeah, there are no people, there are no bicyclists, whatever. But when you bring that truck into a crowded city or even to a small town, the implications of that big truck with an engine in front of the driver and they can't see the ground for 20 feet results in this slide. And these are all lives. These are all lives in our city, all stories you would have read or heard about in the news, none of which really needed to happen. Next. There's also a financial implication to all of this. And the city controller very regularly does a report on the city fleet and crashes. I have my own editorial about that report. I will say this is, I think 2 years ago, they report, and this was the first slide. And it showed since 2012, I actually started in this job in 2011 under Mayor Bloomberg, a pretty steady reduction in crashes and claims. And so, it's never perfect. You're always trying to do better, but it's the right trend line. 40% down is the right trend line. However, next. Their cost implications, though, are still enormous. And this trend line is not one we like. And the payouts for these claims are going up. Now, I will tell you that may have a lot more to do with litigation issues and courtroom issues than it does with fleet safety issues. This isn't completely in my control. One could argue, well, maybe you have fewer crashes, but they're worse crashes, or they're more dangerous, or they're hitting people. And I'm going to argue a little later. I'm going to show you some information that would argue that's not true. I think there's some litigation things that we have to look out. But what is unambiguous is this is a huge financial issue. The city of New York spends about $200 million a year when you look at the full set of claims, vehicle repair costs, workers' compensation related issues. It's about $200 million a year. If Crash were a city agency, it'd be one of the medium to large size funded city agencies. And so it's worthy of attention, not just on the public safety side, but on the financial side. Next. So Mayor Adams announced Executive Order 39 early last year. It followed a horrific crash where a young child was killed in a collision with a tow truck, and a number of other events. It applies to the city fleet and also city contractors. And it's an effort to take on the issue of visual awareness and general safety. It's actually the first time that we will require of contractors, they have to have a fleet safety plan, contractors who use vehicles in trucks in their operations. We've never required that before. I don't think most municipalities or states do anything like that themselves. But it's also an effort to take on visual awareness for truck operators. Truck operation, incredibly hard, critical job. Think of COVID, we all relied on trucks and vans for everything in our daily lives. It's a hard, very taxing job. And we design in the United States and Canada, we design most trucks so you can't see the ground for about 20 feet. Look at that truck in this picture. If you're that truck operator, do you think you can see in front of you? How can you? The engine transmission are blocking your view. They're enormous. Next slide. Okay, so this is the Safe Fleet Transition Plan itself. Obviously, it's small text. I'm not going to try and go through it in detail. It is a public document, but I did want to just give you visually before I go into the specific implementations. It's Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, mandates, best practices, exploratory technologies, and things can change. We update this report every 2 years. I'm going to discuss that, and we definitely have examples. Intelligent Speed Assist being one that starts as a Tier 3 and now is a Tier 1. And so, and in each of these boxes is a technology, whether it's automatic braking, backup cameras, driver alerts, side guards, telematics, where we are looking at technology, testing it, implementing it, assessing it, often with the United States Department of Transportation Volpe Center, often publishing reports on it, and then making it standard for specifications for the city fleet, how we buy our vehicles, what we specify. Next. One of the major implementations, and I think as impactful for anything, and if I was advising a new fleet operation, public or private, to do any one thing, I would say do telematics, live telematics on your vehicles. We track 29,000 vehicles out of the DCAS Fleet Office of Real-Time Tracking. And this is the, kind of the command center of the fleet. Has a lot of purposes. I'm going to talk about safety here, but a lot of purposes, including operational and service provision. Next. If some of you want to come visit us, reach out and we can try and do some tours and talk more about the fort. One of the things that we did, one of the first things we did at the fort under Mayor Adams at the beginning of the administration was fleet reduction, looking and analyzing our fleet to try and find efficiencies, places where vehicles didn't need to be operating, where you could take public transportation or share vehicles, or maybe you just don't need this many vehicles. The safest and greenest vehicle is one you do not operate. And we were able to reduce the fleet a little less than 1,000 vehicles and save some money and send a signal about getting the fleet under control. Next. We are also doing a lot on the safety side. So one thing that's very new for us is we now get live crash alerts. Used to be a city employee gets into a crash, you know, you're hoping that they report it on time. You're hoping you get accurate information. You're hoping they call the police department like they were required to. Doesn't always happen. There's sometimes incentives not to try and do that. Now, the very first indication of a report is a PDF report from the system that goes to the agencies and to us that tells us what happened. Right? Vehicle just had a G-force event in the rear end. That's what this is. And you can see the picture. It wasn't particularly helpful crash. It was a lot of damage. It's telling us where it is, what's happening, what the speed is, and other indicators. So we are getting an immediate alert that something's just happened. We need to respond to it. And we're getting initial information immediately about it. Next. We're also monitoring safety risk, and this is one of our really big initiatives to look at. We are tracking everything that happens in a car: hard acceleration, hard braking, hard cornering. Those are called the ABCs, and those are not legal issues, right? If you're constantly slamming your brakes, I mean, that's not illegal. It's an indication you're an unsafe driver, right? You're constantly slamming your brakes, you're a tailgater, you're a speeder. You should not have to do that. Once in a while, yeah, you know, a cat can run in front of the car, no biggie. But if you're constantly flooring the accelerator, you're a dangerous driver and you're going to get into a crash. So we're tracking this. And then seatbelt, speeding, and excessive speeding, what we define as 25 miles above the speed limit, those are legal indicators. And we are monitoring this for every single car and for 15,000 specific individual drivers every day and working to reduce these. And excessive speeding, if you excessively speed in a city car, we will not just alert your agencies, we'll call your agency real time. We can't do that for everything because it's just too many potential events. But excessive speeding, if you're going 90 on First Avenue, your agency will get a call as you're doing it as to what are you doing and stop it. Next. We've made progress. So these alerts, we've made progress. We have well over 50% reduction in what we call high and moderate risk driving. We're trying to get to vision zero for risky driving. Everybody drive at low or mild risk. And we started at about 89% of the city fleet did. We're now at about 95%. So we know we can get to vision zero on high and moderate risk driving. On excessive speeding, it's actually more like 70%. We've made really great progress. And to some extent, that which remains is emergency services. The fire and the sheriff are a great part of what remains. And partly it's a technical issue. We haven't successfully yet been able to link the lights and sirens to the telematics so that we don't know if a sheriff may be speeding, but they may be operating legally speeding to an emergency. We're not technically yet able to do on and off for lights and sirens. So that a little bit of advancement we need so we can keep pushing this down. Next. The ABCs, so, as we all know, in so many aspects of our lives, especially in public safety and in transportation safety, a small number of individuals cause a huge percentage of our problems. We happen to know this on hard accelerating, braking, and cornering. 2% of the vehicles cause 47% of the alerts. So, and we know who they are. We know it's about 450 vehicles, and that is our focus. And I'm going to talk to you soon about what we're actually going to be doing for these 450 cars. But the data is very informing. Next. I will say that while we certainly identify problematic behaviors through telematics and focus on it, we can also identify really good behaviors and model behaviors and great drivers and safe drivers. And we just recognized at our forum on October 16th, New York City's safest driver. And I don't have a whole lot of time, but if you could see, some of them are just incredibly safe drivers, literally 1,000 times safer than the standard driver. The standard driver has about 1,000 alerts every 10,000 miles. We know that analytically. The safest driver in our program, Sergei Motorin, had 1 in 11,000 miles. 1 in 11,000 miles compared to well over 10,000 for his peers. So there are people doing extraordinary care and caution on the roads, and we're trying to recognize them. Next. Steve Goldsmith, former deputy mayor and professor at Harvard now, has done his own kind of review and work on this. So I don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but I refer you to this article and to some of his review of our work. Next. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a few of these implementations that I want to focus on. One, where we are really leading the world, is intelligent speed assist. So vehicles have had governors forever. If you have a sedan, it probably can't go over 120 miles, and a fixed governor. Trucks, maybe 90 miles. Intelligent speed assist is a dynamic governor tied to our telematics. If you're on a 25-mile-an-hour roadway, you can't go over 25. If you then drive to a 40-mile-an-hour roadway, you can't go over 40. It controls the speed, not through braking, but through not allowing you to further accelerate. Next slide.
That's Intelligent Speed Assistance, or ISA technology, at work on a ride over the Brooklyn Bridge, installed in a zero-emissions vehicle from the city's fleet.
When it starts to go above the speed limit in any zone, the engine computer will no longer send signals to the accelerator. So you can press the accelerator button, and Nate's going to show you that, but the car won't accelerate.
The Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS, is testing ISA in 50 of the city's fleet vehicles from a number of municipal agencies. It's all controlled by GPS and the DCAS Fleet Office of Real-Time Tracking. The city says the pilot program has proven successful in preventing speeding and reducing instances of unsafe driving.
99% of the 130,000 miles we've done so far has been within the speed limit. And that 1% is really just initial acceleration beyond the speed limit, and then the car is bringing you right back to the speed limit.
The vehicles feature an override button that can temporarily disable the system for 15 seconds, and DCAS can program the vehicles to allow them to travel slightly above or below the speed limit, depending on the situation.
We can set a more aggressive speed limit in certain locations. So around school zones, we can lower the speed limit further than is set by DOT, so that our vehicles would go even more slowly around school zones.
DCAS is expanding the program to 25 more vehicles by the end of February and working on a plan for a large-scale expansion, applying for federal funding to do its entire light and medium-duty fleet, a goal of 7,500 vehicles. Roger Clark, New York One.
Next slide. So where we are now, Roger Clark mentioned the goal. I'll skip a little. Don't skip slides. We're at 700 vehicles now. We've driven over 6 million miles on ISA. We published a report, an assessment report. So we did a science report, right? Control group study with the United States Department of Transportation. Again, a public record document. Next slide. And what we found is ISA works, and it works really well. And one interesting thing about this, for time, I can't go too into it, but we didn't study all time in the car. We studied what we call the opportunity to speed times. As we all know, a lot of, driving legally is because you're stuck in traffic, right? You're in congestion. So yeah, I'm driving 10 miles an hour. Oh, good for me, because I can't drive anymore. I'm stuck in the traffic. So we actually eliminated all those instances where legal behavior was required and forced by the situation, and said, only when you could speed, when the roadway is clear enough to allow speeding, what are you doing? And we saw a 64% decrease in speeding with the ISA system, and actually a 10% increase in the control group. Actually got worse. I'm not totally sure why that is, but we made a major impact. Because we are not a braking system, because we're an acceleration system, you can accelerate slightly over the speed limit at first. We think a braking system would have been the most unpopular thing ever. I would not have wanted to do it either. So we're not braking the car. We're basically saying if you're going in a 40-mile-an-hour zone and you accelerate, you're at 39 and you accelerate to 43, it'll let you do that acceleration, but then it won't let you accelerate anymore. It's not going to stop you from hitting the accelerator, but then once you're over the speed limit, the acceleration won't work anymore until it brings you down. So it gives a buffer. It's more comfortable in the road. I've driven for many, many hours in ISA in the road, and it's a fairly comfortable experience. Next. we looked at it, all the different types of traffic speed zones. It's actually most effective at high speed zones, but still very effective in 25-mile-an-hour zone, which is the standard speed limit inside the city. Next. We also focused on the worst drivers and the worst performers, what we called habitual speeders. It's now more popularly known as super speeders. And of course, there's super speeder legislation I'm going to mention. And it worked for them too. We did a control group study on the vehicles and drivers with the most inclination to speed, the worst driving behaviors, through tickets, through telematics as we tracked it. And we saw 50% reduction, little less than for the average driver, but still dramatic, right? So even for people who committed to speed and break the law, the system's stopping you. Next. I also want to mention, I just can't help but throw in some sustainability thing, but a fascinating connection to safe driving through ISA is actually more fuel efficient driving, a 6% fuel economy benefit for the vehicles that we're driving with ISA versus the control group. So it also has other benefits in terms of fuel economy and cost savings. Next. And it's having impact. So, we are the leader in ISA in the United States and North America, but ISA, we won't be for long. And that's a good thing. The state of Virginia has passed a super speeder law, and they were the first. Washington State, Georgia have passed these laws, Washington, D.C., and of course, in New York State, the state Senate has passed a super speeder law. The super speeder law is basically, you can debate the frequency, but if you get X number of tickets, and that's obviously to be worked out, or other types of violations or problems on the road, and you want to keep your license, you're going to have to put ISA in your car. And that's the super speeder laws that are going to affect in other states that are being debated, passed by the Senate, not yet passed in the Assembly. But this ISA technology is now having impact, and focusing on the worst drivers is a great place to focus it. Thanks. And we announced in October that we are going to take the next step. We're going to place ISA on all civilian vehicles, not on lights and sirens, not on police cars or ambulances, because they speed legally. But on all our civilian vehicles, we're now going to, when we purchase vehicles, they're all going to be designed and specified to come with ISA. And that was our announcement on October 8th. Next. So a few other things I want to talk about where we're also kind of leading the nation. Truck side guards. If I was in a room with you all, I would ask you for a show of hands who've ever heard of a truck side guard. And it's a kind of fascinating and discouraging story, though, at the same time. That's a guardrail that is, pretty simple tech, to be honest, between the front and back wheels of a truck. And it's meant to keep a pedestrian, a child, a bicyclist, a motorcyclist, even a small car, from getting trapped in the back wheel and maimed or killed. And this is actually a fairly common event. If you go to Europe, you go to London, you go to Brazil, you go to most places in the world, to be honest, it's a standard item. It's as standard as a seatbelt, an airbag. That's been around for decades. UK is, I think, 30 years into mandating it for all commercial and public trucks. But it's very uncommon here. And so we're trying to change that. We've published a report, next slide, on truck side guards. We've already done the entire city fleet. If you now see any garbage truck, fire truck, police truck, any parks truck, they'll have a side guard. If they don't, give me a call. But I don't think you'll find them unless someone fell off, which can only happen with the very early model. And we are also doing this in partnership with the Business Integrity Commission with our commercial vehicles. And just major, a simple common sense thing, common in the world, needs to be common here. Next. High vision, hugely important issue, and in so many unnecessary events happen because of how we design a truck in the first place. Look at the left, look at the right, and the right's not even high vision, it's what we call cab over, but it's better. When you design an engine and transmission and you put it in front of the driver, you can't see the ground, often for 15 to 25 feet. And that is the genesis of so many events. Next slide. We did a simulation study with the U.S. Department of Transportation Roadway Center. They have what's called a Human Factors Lab in Massachusetts. It's part of the federal government, and I had a chance to tour it just a few weeks ago, and it's really a brilliant place. And they did a simulation study of crosswalk events. And long and short, in almost every case in the simulation study, when the driver was in a conventional vehicle, and they were literally in a lab and they're testing it with actual drivers in simulation, the pedestrian was killed. And in no case, when you were in a high vision truck where you can see the ground in front of you, that's the picture on the right, was the pedestrian killed. Next. Just some examples from our recent Fleet Safety Forum on the left. That's the standard truck. They're all electric trucks, so they're all good in that sense, but that's the standard truck where the engine is in front of the driver. If you look on the right, and we're trying to show the bicycles and the pedestrians in the lines of sight. On the right is a new electric truck that we're bringing in at sanitation. That's it's called cab over, but it's better. It's more of a front face, not perfect. I'm going to show you perfect. Next slide. This is actually a truck you would see in London. It's an all-electric garbage truck, but with a really high vision design front. The dashboard's very low to the ground. See how low it is, the front, and that provides tremendous visual capacity. That's the safest truck that could be out there. This isn't like a new thing. It's just a new thing in North America. It's not a new thing in the world. Next. So until we can get to high vision, and we ask for all of your help to push the industry on this, I asked a person who runs one of the big manufacturing truck companies in the world, why do you sell high vision in Europe and not in North America? And his answer was, because in Europe they demand it, in North America, pretty much other than you, Keith, nobody's ever brought it up. And so we need all of you to kind of understand this issue and recognize it. Until we can get to high vision design trucks, and that's going to take change in this industry in North America, we are mandating, that's Executive Order 31 that the mayor signed, we're mandating surround cameras. And we want to show you a little bit more about that next.
Okay, guys, we want to do this show and tell, and this is really cool. Two other key aspects to this plan. The first one being surround cameras outside of the bus. So Keith and I are going to walk up here. So this is Ann, our lovely bus driver. Hi, Ann. Hi. So we want to show you something. Keith, why don't you, step there. John, if John comes out here, so Ann is driving the bus, right? And she's at eye level. This is what Ann sees in front, right?
So we have one of our employees in front of the bus, and right now he's kneeling over, so about the size of a child, and of course our school buses are here to transport children. Ann, without any assistance, cannot see him at this time. So Ann, as a normal heighted driver, is sitting at the wheel. Our employee, who happens to be right in front of this bus, is invisible to her.
But watch what happens, John. Let's show him. Look at the screen.
So with these surround cameras, Ann now gets a perfect view around the bus. And you can see that Gary, our great DCAS employee, now is fully visible to Ann through the camera. But without that camera, she would not know that he's in front of the bus. And of course, that's an enormous concern. Our buses exist only to transport children. And so we need to make sure that our bus drivers can see all around the bus. And the cameras also offer a view around all four corners of the bus, so that if a child or a pedestrian, a family member is approaching any side of the bus, our bus drivers now have a perfect view of that.
Next slide. So we're doing a few other things that I'll mention. Certainly we continue to train employees. Every city driver has to go through a day with us on the civilian side, and then actually even more on the law enforcement and emergency side, what's called EVOC training. But we do a full day. Training isn't the only thing, but it's where you start. And we focus on things like the 3-second rule, not just don't tailgate, and you'll eliminate a huge percentage of crashes. So we've trained over 115,000 city employees. Next. We bar hands-free phone use and have for a number of years now. Every state in America, or most, bar handheld phone use and bar texting. And the assumption behind that, especially for handheld, is that I'll take my Diet Coke. If I'm doing this, if I've got a phone to my ear, that's dangerous. And so you can't do that. And certainly you can't be looking down texting. I agree with that. But the assumption is that talking on a phone, having conversation is okay. Bluetooth type things are okay, and they're not unsafe. So I could tell you right now that I'm going to take a stop. I'm going to go into my city car and I'm going to begin, I'm going to start driving throughout the city and I'm going to restart this webinar. And that would be perfectly legal. I would have every right to do that. That is not against the law, but that would be incredibly dangerous. There is no way I could present to you competently and be focused on what's going on the roadway. But there are people trying to do that every day, and we all know it. We've all seen people are on Teams meetings or whatever. They're driving, and what are you thinking? So we think it's distraction that kills, distraction that is the danger, and so we have barred hands-free phone use. Next. So what is all this achieving? And that's where I want to end it. Are we making progress? And the answer is yes. We developed under Mayor de Blasio, one of the very first initiatives was citywide crash tracking. We need to understand what in fact is happening in crashes and have trends and be able to study them across types of vehicles, weather conditions, what are the causes of crashes, what happens, where are the crashes happening, whether it's tailgating, is it sideswiping? So we developed a crash system as part of the fleet management system. Next. And we're making progress. So we've reduced about 30% of preventable collisions, not always straight line. And as you probably all know, during the COVID period, we lost some progress and had to go obtain it. That was heavily publicly reported across the whole fleet industry that people started driving more dangerously during COVID. We saw that too. On the thing we are most focused on, we have made the most progress. And I thank all city employees and city agencies. We've reduced pedestrian injuries by 60%. And so, I would like to have no crashes, but I'll live with a fender bender. I'll live with someone bumped into a bench, as long as there's nobody on the bench. I'll live with some of the body damage stuff. That is not our concern. The biggest focus is not to be hurting people, and we are making progress on that. Most of the initiatives I talked to you about are really focused not on, don't hit a hydrant or don't have a parking event where you bumped into another car. It's focused on not hurting people, and we are making progress. Preventable rear end collisions, the most preventable thing, even if you're a speeder, just don't be a tailgater, and you're not going to create an accident. But this is also where so much of the cost is, right? We rear end somebody, and then it's neck, back, sue, surgery, real surgery, fake surgery, and $1 million payouts. And so we've made a lot of progress on rear end collisions with a lot more progress to go. Next. We report our crash and full performance in the Mayor's Management Report. This is the only slide that is actually not updated. I have to update. We just published the new MMR a week or two ago, and so I haven't updated this one for fiscal year 25, but you're welcome to go look at our fiscal year 25 Mayor's Management Report. Fleet has its own section of the Mayor's Management Report, and we, again, are making progress with enormous amount more to go. Next. And of course, the city's making progress. Adonis Rodriguez announced, the DOT commissioner, in July that it had been the safest 6 months since Vision Zero had begun in Lincoln City tracking history. That doesn't mean we don't read about horrific events. This is about moving the curve and making progress and getting better. It's not perfect, and we're always going to be having to keep the focus. Next. Mayor Adams announced a little bit more recently that trend had continued. And so, we hope to see if we can have this be a best yet year, and hopefully it will be, but that'll just mean it's best yet. And the effort, the focus, the commitment, the investment, all has to continue and accelerate. Next. We're happy to be recognized with the nation's premier safety award just very recently, a few weeks ago, from the National Safety Council, the largest safety organization in the United States, their Green Cross for Safety Excellence Award. And we're very happy to partner with Lorraine Martin, who runs the National Safety Council, and work together with her organization to push some of these same themes. So we thank her for that. Next. And you just missed our safety event. It was actually on October 8th, but we do many events, but 2 major events every year. And so put on your calendar May 21st, Flushing Meadow Park, the Unisphere is our upcoming fleet show. It'll be our 37th year that we've been managing a fleet show, and it's a lot of fun, and we focus on safe and clean technologies and new tech, and also just get on the park and let fleet have a day of focus. So, and then we'll have another safety forum next year, as we do every year. So with that, next slide, I just want to thank you for listening. Happy to take any questions. Feel free to reach out. And all of this that I talked to you about is public record. So if you want to see any of these reports, they're all in the public record. Go to NYC Fleet, our website through DCAS, and it's all there. Back to you, Adam.
Thank you, Keith. That was really fantastic. I'm already making a note to drop by the Unisphere on, was it May 21st?
Yes.
Check out Fleet Show.
Yes.
Don't want to get it confused with Fleet Week. Fleet Show.
Please do.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're
awesome.
not Fleet. We're not Fleet Week. The military and Navy side, but we're the civilian side of it.
Exactly, and very impressive. So thank you. So I've got a couple of questions I'll get us started with. I just want to remind our listeners and viewers that they're welcome to drop any questions they might have into the chat. Also, a quick reminder that I see, yep, thank you, Maya, that we're eligible for certification maintenance credits for any AICP viewers and attendees. So I'm going to get started. I was really just kind of working almost backward to front. The improvements in bikes and e-bikes, that's really been impressive. We've done a lot of work here at NYMTC with active mobility, active transportation, micromobility, and it's definitely a growing area, but it's also an area where I live in the suburbs of New Jersey, where there have been some strong concerns about the safety of these vehicles, and it's great to see that those numbers are doing well. Just more of an observation really than a question. I don't know if you had anything more you wanted to say on that.
The focus of Executive Order 39 and, my experience in this industry, and which is now 32 years, is visual awareness is behind so much of this. I could show you a video. I'm not going to, because I don't have the permission of the family, and it's not appropriate. In some ways it's just so sad, but I could show you a video right now of a fatality that happened in Brooklyn just a few months ago of a truck literally driving 1 mile an hour that had been in a traffic queue. And an elderly woman walked in front, did what all of us do a million times every day. Walked in front of the vehicle. I mean, I think it's legal now, but just figured the truck wasn't moving and just was going to go through the street. I've only done it 22,000 times in my life. But what she did not know, and what he did not know, was that this truck is designed so he couldn't see her. So he just started moving very slowly, having no concept, just like with Gary in the school bus, that this woman was now in front of him, and he ran him over and killed her. And it's all on video. And, in London, she is alive today. In New York, because of the design of this truck, she's dead. So visual awareness is our focus, because especially for e-bikes and for bicyclists, ultimately it's the same thing. If you can't see around you, you're not going to know they're there. And that causes so many of these events.
It's so true. Thank you for that. So I'm going to throw this question out there as well. I don't know if it's maybe too soon to have this kind of data, but it comes up at a lot of our events, a lot of our webinars, and that's congestion pricing and the impacts that's having. Are you seeing any impacts on safety, positive or negative, with the fleet vehicles since congestion pricing was implemented?
No, not yet. We don't have that kind of data that can zero into congestion pricing. We did work heavily with the MTA on congestion pricing. Many of our vehicles are exempt from congestion pricing. You do not want to discourage garbage pickup in the zone or park maintenance in the zone. You certainly don't want to discourage ambulance pickup or child safety inspection. But of the discretionary vehicles, we've seen a small decrease in use. So we are decreasing on those discretionary vehicles. But I don't have any data. We'd have to really refine to see if you could tie in safety data to the discretionary vehicles. I don't have that yet.
Understood. I just was curious. And as I said, it does come up from time to time. So thank you for that. I was curious about, you mentioned, so the city fleet, I jotted down a number of 28,500 roughly.
Yeah, a little higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is, a little higher, which is about 1 to 2% of the vehicles in New York City, just from, a quick Google search while you were talking. I'm wondering if you're, what you're seeing, which is sizable. I mean, to have one, agency or one umbrella agency that can have that kind of an impact is is amazing, but I'm also curious if you're able to build on that with other groups, organizations in the city. I guess I jotted down, you know, freight delivery. I don't know if taxi and limousine is in any way affiliated, Ubers and Lyfts and the mail delivery, et cetera.
Yeah. So through Executive Order 53, you know, again, we're charged with doing these clean and safe fleet transition plans for the whole industry, right? So, you know, why am I publishing on school buses? Why am I publishing on commercial waste vehicles, right? Yesterday, we were in Union Square in partnership with Empire Clean Cities, promoting clean electric cars. And yes, it's public vehicles, but it was also industry. It was out there. Manhattan Beer was out there with us, and Sprague was out there with us, and Ford was out there with us. And so we are trying to push these efforts across the board. You know, what a telematics solution for public vehicles is just as effective for private vehicles, maybe more, because frankly, it can also help you run your business and bring in revenue. And we've been trying to, you know, show what's possible in electrification, in safety, but also pitch these to broader industries. And we've got a lot of stuff going with the Port Authority, the MTA, the Office of General Services at New York State. We were very happy to have the state DEC commissioner with us yesterday, Amanda Lefton, who's just doing tremendous work on the environmental side. You know, I'm sure, you know, school bus operators, the Quebec delegation. So we are trying to communicate, talk to as many people as possible, push this industry. It's why I'm doing this webinar with you right now.
Exactly. So I wanted to touch on one of the things that I know we talked about a little earlier was the fact that you'd mentioned that when you're talking to these companies about getting those trucks, you know, with the front face instead of the, you know, standard design, that you're the only ones who are asking for them. And I guess I'm wondering how you're building on that. I know you're talking to everybody that'll, you know, that will take an audience with you, but you know, what is the response you're getting from other cities? You're working with organizations perhaps like NACTO that brings all city transportation officials together, maybe speak with that even larger voice. How is that going to try and, you know, affect that change that we obviously need?
You know, it's a process. And so
Yeah.
I'll answer you what we hope to see happen on High Vision by telling you what did happen on sideguards. When we started the sideguard effort in 2014, nobody even knew what a sideguard was. What are you talking about? What's this thing? We published a report with the U.S. Department of Transportation. We started implementing them. Eventually, this became the subject of 2 local laws. We extended it to the commercial vehicle industry. We created the industry itself. The first sideguards are from a Canadian firm, and God bless them, they launched us. But it was like an airflow thing. The company's actually called Airflow. And, you know, they were like the only group that even had anything relevant. We now have certified tons of vendors who can supply this product. We've created this industry. A lot of cities in the United States, Boston and Cambridge and other cities, are now doing sideguards and putting them on their vehicles, mandating them. The federal government gave us this technology transfer award to try and have federal recognition that this could happen. We had a lot of communications going, at least in the previous administrations, with NHTSA and NTSB about that. So, you know, sideguards, we made a lot of progress. I think sideguards is ready for national legislation, and there was bipartisan national legislation to do surround guards that was out there, including sponsored by, you know, New York and Florida senators. So, you know, we've made a lot of progress on surround, with more to do. And look, that's why we're here. We're going to keep, if NACTO wants to invite, you tell me, I'll be there with you. And and look, we know the industry can make these trucks. So is this nothing about a new type of thing? It's not new. Go to London and you will never find a truck as designed on the left side of that the slide you're showing, because they don't exist. I go to London every once in a while, and you know, maybe I should do something else in my life, but I was looking for a conventionally designed truck when I was last in London. Ain't gonna find it. Public, private, you will not find it. And so this is just about telling a story, pushing demand, making clear that, and these are safe for drivers. There's no problem for a commercial truck operator operating either type of truck. And, you know, yesterday I saw a New York Waterways bus that was a High Vision, right? No problem. They are out there somewhat, but they should be standard.
Completely agree. Looking forward to seeing New York City leading the way, and we're looking forward to seeing that everywhere in the years to come. So that is awesome. So I'm checking to see if we have any other questions. I'm giving folks a last chance if they have any questions for Keith on the amazing work being done at DCAS. It's really been great to hear. I've been attending. This is the second time I've heard you present on the subject, Keith, and I learned something new each time. So this has been really great. I think I'm probably going to let it wrap up there unless we have any other questions. Keith, I really appreciate your time. Thank you to the DCAS team for helping to put this together. Thank you to the NYMTC team for helping to put this together. And wish everybody a wonderful rest of your day. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you all.
Take care.